So we are going to talk today on where do top brokers spend their time, right? And so I know you well, obviously, and my mom, your wife, loves to poke fun at you because of everything that you track. And so tell me, why do you track so much things, and why do you track your time, and why do you just track things in general?
Well, I have found over lots of experience what we found is the more we track, the better information we get, the better team we become. And so, I don't track because I just want to poke fingers in people's eyes. I track because we want to know where we're good, where we're not good. It started out as tracking wins and losses on pitches. That was an easy one. And then we would track how many times did we make a pitch, what do we and how did we lose it. So we were thinking about that post-mortem, which is a Navy SEAL, something the Navy SEALs do that we learned from the Navy SEAls. And then it just grew from there. It started growing and growing and growing. So today we are tracking a tremendous amount of stuff that we could never track before, and we do it, and it provides information to us that I would tell you 98% of all brokerage teams don't have the information that we have. And it's because we just take the time, we create the processes to track a bunch of different things throughout every step of the transaction.
Gotcha. Give me one or two examples of things that you track that a lot of people don't.
We track the number of cold calls that we make and how many meaningfuls we get from those cold calls, and how many turn into meetings, and then how many turn into transactions. I would tell you that if there are 10 brokers in the country that track that, I would be shocked.
Gotcha. And when did you first start tracking your time, and what prompted you to say, okay, I track all this other stuff in my business, but let me just see where I'm spending my time and actually start tracking it?
We started tracking our time for a reason different than what you would normally think. We wanted to see, I think 27 years I've been in the strategic coach program with Dan Sullivan, and I have really bought into, as you know, the unique ability process. There's 4 layers of capabilities within every task that you do: incompetent, competent, excellent, and unique ability. And so we started figuring out what each individual person on our team's unique ability was. When you're a sole proprietor, it doesn't matter. When I was just doing brokerage myself, I had to do everything. And then the minute I added an assistant and I added Andrew, or a runner, which was early in my career, I started having to leverage things that I wasn't good at. And so I started giving away the things I knew. It's really easy for us to know what we're incompetent at. And then maybe you can get to competency. But when you can really refine down that you're handing away stuff that you're excellent at, but there's other people on your team that are unique at it, that's when you can start really getting into living, I'm going to use my book, The Fantastic Life. That's when you can start living your fantastic life at work, when you're living in your unique ability 75% or more of your time. And that's what we've started tracking our time initially, to find out were we living in our unique abilities, and if not, how could we move things around to do that.
So you started tracking your time to really help build the perfect team and make your team better. So was that done 10, 15 years ago when you started to build add a couple people to your team, or when did you start doing that?
Well, I've been in the coach program for 26 years, and Dan likes to say he loves me because I'm a committed slow learner. And so I would tell you that I thought we started it a long time ago, but I think it's been about a decade that we started tracking it. And it was because we had a big team. We were growing our team. About 10 years ago, we added a third partner. We were now 5 or 6 people. Today we're 11. And so we started adding, when you have 5 or 6 people, the challenges you have as a team are different than you are when it's just Chelsea, Craig, and Andrew and a runner. So we started doing it that way. And then because we were tracking our time based on unique ability, we started tracking it based on what we have to do in a day. And so now we have this incredible database of information over the last decade of how we break our time down and where it goes. and whether or not it's in our unique ability or not. So it's pretty cool.
It's really cool. And something, I mean, it's cool to see what you can do over 10 years and now you have all this data, right? I always ask myself, what do I think I'll be wishing I had done in my 20s and 30s when I'm 50 and 60? And how can I start doing that now? And so I ask that self personally. I ask it within my personal business career. And I think, if you look at it with that long view, right, the data over a day or a month can tell you something, but over a year or a decade can tell you a lot different, different story. Right?
We track our time twice a year, and I just went through this, and I track my own time and everybody on the team, and then I look at everybody's individual times, and I sit down with them and spend a little bit of time and saying, here's where you're spending your time, and here's where I think there's areas that you can transfer or you need to transfer. Let me give you a perfect example. Literally less than 4 days ago from today, I sat down with Andrew, and Andrew's been my partner, been with me 20 years now. And so Andrew, 20 years ago, was a single young man. Today, he's a father of 3, and the way he spends his time outside of the company is way different than what he could do when we first started working together. So I have to work with him on how he transitions each stage of his kids' lives, and we've been working on it since he started dating Carolyn Sirius, till he married her, till he had his first kid, Grace, then Jack, and then obviously Henry at the end. And so each time we're focused on that. And so I spent some little bit of time last week working on 2 or 3 critical areas that he needs to kind of grow and change, because I'm getting older and he's going to be the face of the team as I slow down, and he has to spend more time doing different things, building deeper relationships with key people. And so that's going to require him to give up some time in other areas, and we've talked about that, and we have the data now to be able to do that. Otherwise it would just be merely a chore or something that we would do, and we hope that it would work out.
Right. The first time you tracked your time as a team, right, within your team, what were the initial findings or takeaways? And was there anything that surprised you, or was it mostly confirming what you already thought?
I think a lot of confirmation. However, I do think we found that people can lie to themselves very easily. We all told ourselves, our runners were working 70 hours a week, and they told us they were working 70 hours a week. They weren't. Andrew and Greg were working 60 hours a week, and they really weren't. I was still working 60 hours a week. I really wasn't. And so we tell ourselves things. We were making cold calls 5 hours a week. We weren't. There's some things that you literally think you're doing. You've convinced yourself you're doing. You may used to have done them, but you're not doing them today. So we use that as a baseline, and we've gotten better because of it, because we do track so many things, and we do track our time. We really know where we can execute better. And I'll give you a perfect example. About 5 years ago, our tenant rep business had slowed down. We do both sides of the transaction, agency and representation. And we really had slowed down. So we were doing maybe 20 or 30 tenant rep deals a year. We had no regional and national accounts. And so we started focusing on that, cold calling, figuring it out. And over the last 5 years, we now have 6 or 7 regional national accounts. Our tenant rep business this year will be greater than our landlord business will. And I think it will be next year as well. And so just by tracking the time and started kind of doing what you just said, which is looking forward and how can I be better than I was, it's actually paying off today. We've been high-fiving each other for the last 6 months, because what we started 5 years ago is now paying off for us in 2022.
Yeah. And data, like you said, data tells you the truth, right? You can't hide from that.
Yes.
What are some other takeaways that you had that you were like, okay, once you saw the data, conscious decisions to change your business, maybe doing more cold calling, obviously focusing more on the tenant rep side of your business. were there any others that you were like, okay, we need to really focus on this area of the business or on our team because of the results you found?
Yeah, one of the shocking things was the lack of time people on my team spent in planning, goal setting, and getting better. I was shocked at how little time they spent, and we've worked really hard to try and up that to be better. I as you know, I'm a goal setting freak, but the not everybody else is. I just assumed everybody else did that, and now after looking at the numbers, I was shocked at how little that they do, and how few people have written goals. And so we're spending way more time on that. We created a program called 90 by 90 that we implemented, where I spend 90 minutes every 90 days with my team members to work on their goals. And so we're trying to up their skill set there. We've spent a tremendous amount of time. I personally have spent a tremendous amount of time on trying to slow down the amount of hours that I work on emails, because our business is primarily emails. And one of the huge things that we're coming out with OneSource is this email component to it, which is going to save us a ton of time. Every broker on my team, and we have 5 actual deal brokers, all spend at least 17 to 20 hours a week in emails. And that is a massive amount of time that you're committing, a third of your time maybe, on emails. And so if we can eliminate 5 hours a week of those, it's a huge win.
Yeah, no one wants to be in their email, right? It's kind of the thing everyone feels they have to be doing. And to, like you said, to work all these transactions, that really means spending time in your email. But no one's fulfilled. No one feels like that's their, unique ability, at least brokers, right? They want to be with clients. So
Yep.
I think, yeah, tracking that, again, people probably start their day saying, hey, I'm going to go through my emails, and they know they spend a lot of time on it, but tracking it probably really opened your eyes to, wow, this is, like you said, 17, 20 hours a week.
Here's the craziest thing. I was at 22 hours a week for the first 3 or 4 years. And I literally, because I have Chelsea and we're working on creating a process, and I probably spent 100 hours, and she spent 100 hours working on getting less and less email time. And I'm down now to 15, 16. So it's still, we're waiting for OneSource. I think that'll get me down to 12 hours a week. And so if I could get that down, if I could get my 22 hours down, which I've already gotten 7 hours a week back, tremendous amount of time, but I'm still absolutely committed to doing it. And I created a 5-phase email process that I've been executing for the last 5 years, and I've only gotten 7 hours a week. Now, when I say only 7 times, times 50 weeks, that's 350 hours a year. I've gotten a couple weeks, I've gotten literally weeks back of my life. It's still frustrating to me, but we've worked around the fringes, and and we still have the core piece of that. So that's just another area that we're looking at it. And I'm committed to trying to get my hours of my emails down below 7 hours a week as a practicing broker and entrepreneur. And if I could do that, I think I'd have a really different life than I have today.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to wrap this up by asking, you've talked us through, what started, prompted you to start tracking, how you've tracked different things in your business. We talked about where you spend your time, and I'm curious today, right after a decade of tracking your time and your team's time, you threw out the number 70% is, of brokers' time is spent managing your transactions. Where are you now? And if you have an idea of the breakdown, what percentage is spent on new business? What percentage is spent on transactions, administrative work, I don't know, team development, and anything else, marketing, where are you today?
So we track 5 big areas. There's really 5 things that brokers do. And so we track those. Within these 5, there's subsets. subsets. The first is daily planning, goal setting. That's one area that we track because we were so weak in it, and most brokers are weak in it. They're not thinking about the future. If I think I have a couple of superpowers of why I've been successful in the business. One of them is I'm really focused on goal setting, and so we focused on that. The second is business development, prospecting. That's a second area that we track. The third area is service delivery, and within service delivery is emails, which is also working on transactions. The fourth area is pitching, where we how much time are we prospect, but how much time do we spend pitching, and actually are we in front of potential clients? And the fifth one is relationship and past clients. How much time are we spending with those? And so within each one of those, there's, in the service delivery, there's probably 10 or 12 subcategories. And in the past client, there's probably 4 or 5. So we track all those. And then in the way the breakdown works, it's a little bit different for every person on the team. But in general, the model of a seasoned broker, let's say 10 plus years in the business, would be maybe 5% of their time in goal setting, 5% of their time in pitching, 5 to 10% of the time in cold calling, canvassing, business development. And so that, and then 5% in past clients, business relationships. And then that leaves you 70% roughly, maybe 10% in past clients, somewhere between 65 to 75% in service delivery, actually working on transactions. Andrew and Greg, because we have a big team, are over 75 or 80% in service delivery. So we spend very little time on the administration side. We do track the administration side, but it's in one of these 5 segments, and most of their time is spent. So we put them in their unique abilities. And I think that's one of the advantages of technology. It's one of the advantages of having a team, and you can use technology to be part of your team. And we have done that. Both, we have a big team, but we also have a robust technology platform that we're using in addition to OneSource. And so we've been able to kind of put people in their unique abilities so they can spend more and more time doing what they do best. If you can have your brokers and your other partners spending 80% of their time working on transactions, that's pretty good.
That's awesome. So do you know off the top of your head, are there any brokers out there that you would say are spending significantly more than 5 or 10% in business development? To me, that sounds low for someone that, is in a sales oriented job.
Well, within a team, there might be one person who does it. There's a big team over at the analytics team over at CBRE, and they have a massive team, 25 people on their team. And one of the founders of the team is a guy named Jim Trobaugh. And Jim Trobaugh spends 100% of his time prospecting. He is a unicorn. All he's done his entire career is cold called, get leads, and he flips them to his team. So there are unicorns that stand out that do that, but practicing brokers who work transactions, it's really difficult to spend more than 10% of your time on business development. I get to do that at the stage I am in my career. I'm higher than 10% in business development, and wanted to grow and as it grows, my service delivery time shrinks. So more business development, more relationships, which I truly love. And even at this stage in the business, I love people. I love developing relationships, real relationships, and less transaction time. But that's a rarity. Not many people get the opportunity to do that until, I would say that most brokers, the lion's share of brokers, until the day that they retire, they're grinding transactions.
Right. Well, this was fantastic. Thanks for sharing all of your data and some of your secrets. Very beneficial for me to listen to this, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Always glad to be on.
Cool.